Okay, picture this. It's the middle of the night. The news cycle? Dead quiet. And then, one explosive event completely shatters the calm. What if Israel strikes Iranian nuclear reactors in the next 24 hours? The clock starts ticking, intelligence reports absolutely flood in, and emergency meetings are called behind closed doors. In this explainer, we're diving straight into the tense midnight scenario of a hypothetical strike that could literally reshape the entire Middle East in an instant.
Let's look at the 24-hour fallout, a global nuclear flashpoint. In a situation like this, a localized military action doesn't stay local for even a minute. It instantly ignites a global crisis. We wouldn't even know the exact minute it happened, but trust me, the tension would be palpable across continents.
The chaos builds in real time. Hour 1, social media absolutely explodes with unconfirmed reports and, frankly, widespread panic. By hour 3, airlines are frantically rerouting flights away from the region. Hit hour 6, and energy traders are watching oil prices just jump off the charts. You see, tension doesn't wait for certainty. People in markets, they prepare for the worst before the facts are even fully clear. And we have to remember the target here: nuclear reactors. This isn't just some symbolic military base. Reactors represent immense power, and because of that, immense fear. A strike on a sensitive facility like this instantly triggers rapidly spreading fears of radiation and environmental contamination. It's the kind of target that guarantees global consequences that far outlast the initial explosion. Which brings us to the regional chain reaction, where we find a region on the edge of a cliff. The geopolitical fallout is immediate. Every neighboring capital is abruptly checking their own defenses, bracing for what comes next. Because in this scenario, Iran would almost certainly treat this as a direct assault on its sovereignty. They wouldn't just stay silent. It's like a row of falling dominoes. First, you get harsh speeches instantly condemning the attack. Then, step 2, military forces across the entire region go on high alert. Step 3, regional allies position themselves politically, if not militarily. And finally, step 4, the looming threat of missile, drone, or cyber counterattacks. It really shows how quickly pride, fear, and revenge can pull an entire region into a wider confrontation that nobody can control. One strike never just remains one strike. So that leads into the diplomatic scramble and, honestly, the most dangerous phone calls leaders will ever make. The global diplomatic arena would instantly catch fire. The UN would be pulled into emergency sessions. Capitals from Washington to Beijing, Moscow to Brussels, they are suddenly under intense pressure to choose their words very, very carefully. They know every single syllable could decide whether the situation escalates or steps back. Now, the crucial point is how this action is framed, because it creates a massive divide on the world stage. On one hand, View 1, the perspective of Israeli leadership and its supporters, frames it as a necessary, preemptive move meant to protect national survival and stop an irreversible threat. But on the flip side, View 2 highlights the perspective of critics, who see it as a dangerous, reckless escalation crossing a critical line, risking a much larger, uncontrollable war. These two deeply opposed views would just completely dominate every emergency meeting worldwide as a crisis unfolds. With all those public debates raging, diplomats turn to a vital tool: back-channel communication. If you're not familiar, these are private, unofficial lines of contact used when public stages just become way too loud and public trust starts to collapse. In a crisis of this magnitude, diplomats rely almost entirely on these private lines. When public statements get harsh and communication is harder than putting out a forest fire, these back channels are literally the only hope to prevent total disaster. But the fallout isn't just military, right? It's financial. We enter global markets under fire. Basically, an economic lightning strike. A crisis in the Middle East doesn't just stay in the Middle East. It instantly sends a massive financial shockwave through our highly connected global economy. Just look at the immediate reactions across different sectors. Oil prices? They surge as traders anticipate supply disruptions. Gold rises rapidly because investors are fleeing to the safety of precious metals. Stock markets wobble under the sudden weight of all that uncertainty, and shipping companies immediately reevaluate their routes, which causes insurance premiums to just jump overnight. It proves, without a doubt, that a crisis in one corner of the world quickly translates into a price increase in another. And these immediate market reactions trigger what we can call the invisible shockwaves. We're talking about direct hits to fuel prices, deeply tangled global supply chains, volatile currency markets, rising food costs, and plunging consumer confidence. You know, people often focus purely on the military aspect, the missiles, the air defenses, but the real everyday damage goes far beyond the battlefield. It hits the wallet and it hits the security of almost every single person on the planet.
That brings us to the human element, where uncertainty travels faster than facts. Let's actually slow down for a second and think about the psychological toll here. Ordinary people across the region are frantically checking on family, making sure their phones are charged, bracing for history to repeat itself. In a single day, the world begins to feel smaller, louder, and just far more fragile. Fear spreads in waves, reaching people miles and miles away from the immediate physical danger, proving that a strike on a nuclear target creates deep, lasting psychological shockwaves. But there is an alternative path to total escalation. As the saying goes, history has shown that some wars are stopped not by trust, but by exhaustion, pressure, fear of consequences. In the best-case version of this scenario, extreme international pressure forces leaders to the negotiating table before things spiral beyond repair. It's not about sudden diplomatic trust, it's about the sheer terror of what happens if they don't stop before something irreversible occurs.
Now, even if the guns go quiet through all that pressure, the scars remain permanent. Looking at the long-term fallout, we'd see an enormous political aftermath, rapidly shifting global alliances and hardened public opinion on all sides. Future nuclear negotiations, they'd become vastly more complicated. The trust needed for basic diplomacy is severely weakened, and international red lines get redrawn for years to come. Even after just a 24-hour window, a brand new era of suspicion begins. So we're left with a deeply sobering question. How close is the world to a moment that changes everything? This explainer isn't just about a hypothetical military strategy, it's about how rapidly modern crises move from mere speculation to outright catastrophe. It shows how fragile peace can be when fear and power collide. The most dangerous moments often begin with a single decision, a single strike, that no one fully controls afterward. What you should really take away from this is that diplomacy matters immensely. Restraint, while often much harder than force, is infinitely more valuable. Think about this scenario and ask yourself, just how quickly could our interconnected world change overnight?